What is up, everybody? Shao Scout 0013 here with the whole crew except for Emperor Atlantis. We've got Canadian Bear over here.
Oh,
We got Grant down there.
what's up?
And then we've got Kyler. We got Chris here.
Hey, hey.
And today we're going to talk about the points updates and the shocking change to guidance and pull the strings. So, yeah, we've had a really big discussion beforehand on a lot of this and how I honestly don't know how to explain it. Uh, Good and bad. I mean, I know that Chris, you were talking about Anakin being still too cheap, and Yoda that going down 10 points is way too much, and or
Well,
maybe not enough.
yeah,
Sorry.
or said differently, I'm not saying that Anakin's needs more points necessarily, right? Because they slammed a bunch of other units. In the world that we were in, right, with the units that we had, he was too cheap. But when you raise the price, of course, of all of the upgrades and all the different units and stuff like that, I mean, yeah, maybe he's perfectly fine now, right? Like so, uh, but my problem was that when you have certain models who aren't priced correctly, it can give the overall list a feeling of being overly strong and too powerful. And so then when you see these sweeping changes, arcs up, strikes up, commander upgrade ups, uh, commandos, the medic, everything. And Barks, really? Like, I mean, like seriously, guys. Like Barks. Like yeah. Did anybody feel like there was a problem with Bark? Anyway, yeah. And then Yoda gets a drop, but that's quote unquote because of the guidance nerf, quote quotation finger nerf, which we'll talk about in its own separate thing. But yeah. So back to the thing, and also yeah, recon intel up, right? So it's like when you look at all the things that go up, you mentioned that your list went up 99 points. Like it was legal at Crucible, but your list is now 99 points up. That's basically 13% of your list needs to get trimmed now. That's not an easy thing to do. Finding 100 points is effectively impossible. You're just going to have to reinvent the list, right? You're just going to have to you're going to have to come at it from like, well, I'm just literally not taking, and probably you're not going to be taking, and this is a and I want to make sure we put a pin in it because I don't want the conversation to move that way maybe yet. But I believe you had commandos, right? Was
Yeah,
that
I had
correct? You had
two,
three
two,
commandos?
just two
Two?
commandos.
Okay, a lot of people were playing 2 to 3 commandos. New product, right? So one might even say, "Hey, game company comes out with this product, really really great, snazzy, maybe a little overtuned, a little undercosted. People feel the need to rush out and buy product, paint it up, slap it together, and start playing it. Next points update, fuck you. Sorry for cussing, but that's
You're
what it
good.
feels like. And that like I'm passionately against that type of like League of Legends or any of these games. People do that, right? They release these units or heroes or name the game, and they release them in an over or undercosted or overperforming state because it's going to sell more, and then they rein it back in. And so um, I'm just I can't help but feel like Ewoks might have been even in the same boat a little bit. Like the Ewoks were kind of vicious when they were released, right? But you had to run out and buy 8 boxes of those things, right? Or whatever. Like, and it's a great way for a company to push plastic. And I know they want to make money, but it just makes me wonder, like, are we gonna be are is this like the new thing? Is like they're just gonna is this gonna be how the company's gonna do it? I worry because especially because when I think of like the power creep that like other AMG games have, they're notorious for their power creep. So now it makes me wonder: is this like the new norm? Like, okay, we're gonna get updates every six months because yeah, now they realize, hey, let's put them on that power creep cycle where we're gonna release new units, they're gonna be really good, and then we know that we're gonna nerf them in 6 months. And then that makes me wonder, like, should I ever even buy new product, right? Because I'm fortunately one of the few people who I love my arcs way too much, so I just never bought commandos. But my buddy bought 3 boxes and he's so upset. He's so upset because he's like, man, he's like, I just, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, I think we'll have to wait a little bit for them to come back down, but because yeah, I got 3 boxes too, and I went full in on 501st for Christmas, get it all painted up, got everything done. I started expanding my army drastically, and even getting a tank from Grant and painting it up and trying to build up this super nice Republic army for it to now just feel like even the basic stuff's too expensive to play. So you're not even going to get an extremely efficient army because you're going to have rebels and empire and maybe even CIS with these high activation lists, and Republic can't even probably get to a 10 act list to match that. And in this game right now, you need a ton of activations because of how much bloodshed, I should say, that there is and how many units are getting taken off the table. But yeah, I know that
Well,
we
the
were.
shift to the primaries too. That's one of the things we were discussing beforehand is how all of the primaries now, we lost primaries. We basically have two of the same missions spread out against six different layouts. And dovetailing off of the whole, like, okay, new unit, I'm going to go out and buy the max that I can for that. It hasn't just been commandos. I know most of us here play GAR, so we see that a lot, but Rebel Sleeper Cell, all these guys playing Rebels, that was the first thing of like, okay, if I'm going to run this efficiently, this is my somewhat counter arc. Okay, well, I'm just going to go out and buy 3. I know Emperor and Master Mud have been talking about it. A lot of people have been testing out crab droids because of their scouting party. And it's like, okay, well, I'm now going to run 3 crab droids because AMG did this change to deployment to where,
create
okay,
a
just,
problem and then sell you a solution.
yep.
And then we'll probably see crab droids on the table just as much as we saw the new arcs and clone commandos. And then the next thing you know, probably in April, those things are going to skyrocket in price because of how good the scouting party is going to be.
Unless they release a unit that sucks. But as a business, do you want to release new models that suck that nobody's excited about? Because it doesn't matter how cool it looks. So the hobbyists are going to buy everything. So that's a net zero. And where do you really get the extra sales? Well, people who like to play the game and want to be competitive. So they got to be competitive. And this is not a new thing. Everyone knows it exists because they've seen it in video games for a decade or more now, right? That's the model of online games that have patches and things. We're going to release something, it's going to be too good. You deal with it for 3 months, it's going to get nerfed. This game we have to deal with it for 6 months, but depending on when it releases, potentially. Like if they just did points and then the next unit comes out like 3 weeks later, oh, good luck. I hope, but we don't know what the points that they're gonna do. But like, and you could say, well, they could change points at any time. And while that might be technically true, let's just look at history to determine whether or not we think that that's actually true. And I don't think it's actually true. I don't think that we're gonna get more than twice yearly updates. I'd never.
Well,
I just don't.
well,
I
let
mean,
me
that's
go ahead.
already an improvement. So
Yeah.
they already said they didn't want to do points changes to. They want to make the perfect game, so they don't have to. And now they've said that they're going to do twice yearly. That's already an improvement for us. There's a little
Yes.
ray of sunshine for this cloudy day.
Well, let me
Yeah.
go
And
ahead
I
and
will say too. Oh, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Finish.
So one of the things that we were trying to figure out beforehand was like, when did this all, like, what was the conception date of 2.6? So mini strav was July the 18th. So we are almost to the 4 month mark. And so basically we went a full quarter, a little bit over a quarter of GAR arcs clone commandos just kind of reigning supreme, and then they felt the need, this would be one of their emergency situations. And I think we can all agree. I mean, yes, we were all kind of salty to see it, but we all knew it was coming. We all knew that prices were about to go up. Some of the things that we didn't see coming that we're gonna talk about here in a little bit were like major keywords getting reworked to where they are now quite literally like 50% less, like, or I don't want to say less effective, but that statistic's probably even off because of how much more they could have done through standbys. But that's one get into that.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and officially start going down the list. We'll start with Recon Intel. Has moved up 3 points from 5 to 8. So Scouting Party again is still going to be even better now, because if you can't have as many out, as long as you have one that can kind of carry that over to 2 extra units, at least Scouting Party is going to be great. And Rex did not go up, so that's nice. But he's going to go up 3 points because now you're having to add Recon Intel still, and going from 5 to 8, so that's going to be tough. Anakin is 155 to 170, and I know that is nice, but again, with what we'll get into with Op Luke going from 175 to 165, he's 5 points cheaper than Anakin, but Anakin is rocking house. Arcs are 58 to 64, so they've gone up 6 points. Strike teams have gone up 2 points from 24 to 26. Clone Commander upgrade went from 22 to 30, which is a huge and drastic jump. I mean, because I had 3 arcs that had 3 commanders, so that's, 24 points added just there alone. And I know that Canadian Bear, you had an amazing combo with the other stuff, and we'll get into it. Clone Commandos is up 15 points. Delta is up 5 points, which I don't understand that. Because they're already expensive at 100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're. Oh, go ahead, Graham.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say it should have been 10 points and down 5 points.
Yeah, and their logic with that was, okay, we want to see more. We want to see tables filled with more named units, more character units, more non-generic units. But we have a Star Wars game for that y'all created. That's Shatterpoint. Shatterpoint is all about its main named units. Legion is about taking a mass army of all these different unnamed people. Like, it is a army building game. That is what we are here for. So and I know Kravik had mentioned it in his video. It was a similar trend that they saw in X-Wing. Given I've never played X-Wing, but it was like, oh well, all these standard ships, we're going to price hike them to the moon, but your character ships were gonna kind of just leave somewhat takeable. So it's like, okay, I have all these big expensive things because my normal standardized units are too expensive to justify. And like, that's why I've tried building lists in every different faction. Every different faction, I don't run naked cores. The only time I ever run a naked core unit is whenever I'm playing clones. Everyone else gets at least bare minimum a heavy, but I can't justify it whenever I've got arcs that now need a clone commando that just went up 8 points. So, like, I know Shadow Scout was saying, his list basically went up 24 points. Well, actually, it went up 42 points because a 6 point tax on all of your arcs just for their standard cost, then another 8 point tax for your clone commando. So, I mean, you basically just put a whole nother unit of stormtroopers on the table at that point for 1 extra mini on 3 units. But it just, yeah.
Right. Well, I feel like what I was going to mention was I think that if they keep redoing restrictions on list building, like you have to have 3 core, you can have up to maybe 3 special forces, not including the detachments. I don't understand why they, instead of raising points on clone commander upgrades or whatever upgrades, why can't they just limit it to, like, you can only have 2, or maybe you can only have 3. And I think that would obviously limit the amount of boxes they sell because people are going to want more in their army. But if you're not even going to be able to fit them because the prices are way too high, then you might as well just restrict the fact that you can only have 2 clone commanders in there. But I mean, it does hinder a lot of list building. But yeah, I don't know what you guys have thought about that.
Well, I'm gonna bring up the fact that list building is very different in Warhammer 40K, and which is also very different from Age of Sigmar and some of these other games. And I like to bring them up because I know that some people listening may not have played these games, but effectively the the way it works is in Warhammer 40K Battle Line, which is effectively our core. You can bring 6, and then anything else you can bring 3. Sounds a lot very similar, right? Like anybody else getting the same like kind of oh, it sounds very similar. Sounds kind of the same. That's it though. But like, so you can have, so if you want this tank, this vehicle, you can have 3. You want this special units, so effectively like a special forces, like an ARC trooper or whatever. Okay, you can bring 3, right? Like the game, like that's how it is. And I know that this is not how it's been in every edition of Warhammer, but there's no upgrades. The unit is the unit. Like it's like there's no like little like, and I give them this upgrade, and I give them this upgrade, and I give them this, right? So it is a different game, right? We do have to keep that in mind, but it's not it's not a broken system when you just basically tell people like, okay, cool, you can have six battle lines and 3 of anything else, and if it's a character, you can have 1, and that's basically just the it's the simple, it's like it's less rules, right? Like we have this, the weirdness of like, oh, you can only bring 6 unless it's a detachment unit, and then it doesn't count towards the cost, and it's these loopholes that have been added into the game, which are why 21 activation rebels is a thing, right? Because it shouldn't exist that way, right? I shouldn't be able to bring that many activations in any capacity that is good, right? It should be a meme. It should be a meme. It shouldn't also be good.
So I do want to kind of hash this out because I want to get both your points because I know that we've got differing points on here. So Kyler, you've said a little bit of yours. I'll go ahead and let Graham mention something, and then we'll go back to you to kind of get your rebuttal. So why do you think, Graham, that there should be high activation lists like that in Rebels, or even in just any faction?
Um, I guess just with the units that are currently available, it's that can pull off that list. It's not such a big deal. It's comes like it'll do well at day 1 of a tournament, just because probably no one's seen it before. Um, but once it kind of like gets spread around, there's ways to get around it. I mean, both times that I played the 21 act Revel list, it was not out of the realm of possibility that I could have won had I made different decisions. They were both very close games. I only had 9 activations to start. Um, I never did guidance into relentless or charge shenanigans to begin with, so I
Now
don't
you
know.
can't.
Now I can't, so it's like, oh no, I lost so much. um, but it's yeah, no, it's I don't know. I haven't seen the Empire version with red saves, but at least for the Rebel version, it's not terrible. I mean, honestly, I'll keep saying it. The B1 only getting 12x is worse with
Oh,
91 bodies of B1s.
at least they don't surge to defense, which would be insanely difficult to get rid of
Eh,
them.
yeah, but with aggressive tactics and uh, it's still just as much surging for the most part.
Yeah.
If
Well,
you're
the
only
thing,
getting like one attack in, especially if they're just putting them forward.
Yeah, and the other thing with that is the Empire version doesn't have as many tricks as Rebels, because with Rebels you can still
Yeah.
fit like a Leia and maybe another pretty decent commander in there or something, and at least get pretty good command cards. With the Empire version, you can't really get any named characters, so your command cards are way more limited. So there's not as many tricks either, and so it's a lot tougher.
Yeah, and I think we had talked about it in the mod chat. What we get up to like 18 acts or 19 was our cap, and then I know Graham, like you had mentioned, like the red save difference, but even in Empire to actually run that list and get those activations, six of those activations are scouts, and yeah, they're white surging, but they're still they feel very, very fragile, especially whenever you go up against, say arcs or something that can greatly outmaneuver them and then also potentially wipe them off of the table with a halfway decent roll.
And then
Uh,
anything else on your end, Graham, before I go to Kyler?
well, here I'm just throwing together the Empire version, seeing what I can get to. I don't remember what the actual number was.
Yeah. New tax on Gar, you can still get 16 activations. But
Yeah, I'm sure you could do some fun stuff with Padme in a really high activation list, but again, I don't think that they're as effective because they're so little in bodies that it's easy. Even though red die saves are going to be a little bit tougher to bring down, but yeah, I think 99.5% of people are bringing 10 to 13 act lists. Having a 21 act list is pretty far out there. You're not going to get it often, but I'm not sure. And then,
So, Empire, if you take Krennic or Veers because of the same cost, you can get to 20 activations. But if you take two Imperial officers, you can get to 21.
oh wow.
Uh, so, yeah.
and then Kyler, go ahead and finish explaining why you think again that it's probably not either the best idea or your thoughts.
Okay. Um, Preface this. Uh, Nothing against people who disagree with me. This is like, and not, I mean, like, even like someone listening, right? Okay, so this is not a judgment on your character if you like doing that type of list or whatever. But now that I have that preface out of the way, all right, you can get mad at me and clip me out of context. Okay, cool. All right, so number one, I wrote 4 points. This is a game of heroes. It really is supposed to be all about the epic feel of Star Wars, and when the game comes down to flooding the body or flooding the board with just bunches of chaff and bodies that don't mean anything, and in you could make an argument that B1s in some senses are the heroes of the separatists because like army because like they kind of are the Roger Rogers of the world, and like it's kind of the thing. But even there, like, I think that people would rather be bringing Maul, Ventress, Dooku, et cetera, right? So this is a game of heroes, and I think that there needs to be incentives to bring heroes, and when flooding the board is the best way to play, or at least a competitive way to play, it kind of breaks the spirit of the game in my mind. Number two, King of the Hill is the only way to win. So that is literally like what we have. We have six objectives, and all of them effectively tell you to take bodies and throw them into a little small area. And the number of unit leaders that you bring in a list is really the only thing that dictates how much control you have over the board, right? Now, obviously, there are some other exceptions, right? Like force push can still flip a point from being controlled to not controlled, and there are other aspects in the game. Killing, if your unit is just good at deleting an activation, that's another way to contest an area in a meaningful way. However, at the end of the day, all of those things boil down to the same thing, which is having more things that can touch a spot is good. So now you have these two conflicting things where you want to bring these really punchy, powerful, cool units, but that one model that costs 170 points, now that Anakin got increased, plus he's going to have burst, plus he's going to have barrier probably. Maybe he has, or God forbid, he has force push, so now he's 60 points more, or with his once you get the trainings on him as well, he might be like 60 point increase. Okay, so for 230 points, like he's still one leader on a point, right? And that B1 unit is equal in terms of game mechanics. Like I just, again, I don't, other games have, things called like objective control score on unit cards, which allow single models to have a bigger presence on objectives. This game just literally says, oh, that's an entry into your list. That guy counts for 1. And that is a problem, right? So whether it's a reinforced brick of Ewoks that's 14 little bears, or if it's the minimum 6, they still score equivalently, right? So that's the other problem with horde style approach. Number 3, fairness during competitive play when in relationship to time. We don't really use clocks in a lot of places, but lists that bring a ton of little bodies, right? If they bring a ton of these little bodies all over the board, well, guess what? That person is inherently going to spend more time moving his models than I will. I have 11 activations and mine are elite. I have 5-man units at most, and 2 of mine are 1 model. 3 of mine in my list are 2 models, right? The strike snipers. So total models that I'd have to move on the board is what? 6, 15's 21, plus another 15, 36, and then 2, 38. I got 38 models to move. They have almost as many activations as I have models. Like 21 activations. They're like halfway to my model count in just their activations. They're going to take up more time than me, right? And that's not even just the moving of the models. It's the rolling of the extra quantity of dice and counting everything out. It's the checking lines of sight for things, checking distances for range bands of like, can I shoot that unit? It's checking to see if they're uncover, right? Doing the 3-inch checks. The amount of extra small, minute half-second checks that the opponent is going to impose on my time clock, let alone their own, is going to exacerbate the problem. And I'll be frank, I played against Ewoks before on the old game system, and Ewoks before was almost problematic to the point where like you almost demanded a time clock back then. And now they can play even more bears, right? And it didn't feel like my opponent was slow playing. It just felt like they were playing. They were in fact probably playing a little quick, but their quick was still half my speed because just by sheer volume. And the number 4 problem is that it's harder to balance. And we're talking about a company that already is having these points just go to show they already are bad at balancing, and these point changes are indicative of a company that doesn't actually understand how to make small surgical changes and feel things out, right? They hear the community complaining and then they slam their foot down. And all they did was they made me post my army on eBay. Like that's basically what it is. And if it's out there for a lot, and if somebody wants to go out there, it's a beautiful army. Go ahead, check eBay. You'll probably find it. And if you have a couple grand, go ahead and buy it. But like, if it sells, I'll be out of the game. If it doesn't sell, I'll continue to play with my models and still have fun with the game. But like, it makes me make those drastic decisions where I'd rather value the money than the confidence that I have in the company that's producing the game. So, but anyway, back to the point of harder to balance, right? So if you have lists that get to spam like 6 of this, 6 of that, etc., those small increases in points like that we see here for like strikes going up 2 points. Well, it didn't go up 2 points. It went up 2 times 6, right? The thing that they brought with it, right? Like if they made the veterans go up, if they made the counterpart would be like ARC troopers or something. ARCs went up 6 points as well, so that'd be 36 points, right? So like it's not just a 6-point increase. What they're doing is that if lists are bringing the maximum number of these things or whatever, because people are playing a lot of spam lists, you're going to see a lot of volatile point changes in your list, akin to the 99 increase on your list, which is just dastardly, right? There's no world where anybody would have looked at your list and gone, man, that list is 99 points too heavy. I don't think anybody was ever thinking that. But you also weren't playing the problematic lists, and that just goes to show where like they just didn't know where they were supposed to do the points changes. So those 4 points, and I'll recap them real quick just because I want to make sure that if anybody wants to argue with me on any of these, like they know what they were. A game of heroes, that's not what those lists feel like. King of the Hill is a problem. Time fairness and harder to balance when you're spamming units.
So would you say that if any all heroes counted as like 2 victory point, or sorry,
In Warhammer 40K, they use an OC score on every unit card. Vehicles tend to count for 5. A single model in a unit will count as 1, right? So like if I had a unit of 5 dudes, they have an objective control score of 5. So they're worth the same as the vehicle. But as soon as a model dies because it gets shot, the objective control score of that unit shrinks, right? With the proportional to the size of the unit. So if they can have 21 acts and have a big footprint of control score, but then or I'm trying to use the lingo, right? So in 40K, right? But as I'm thinning out your guys, I don't have to fully wipe them to make them worth less points on the control of the objective. So it allows me as a person to not say, oh, you know, that one guy lived, and so you tie me on the objective. No, I killed 4 of the guys in your unit. He's down to just the leader. Okay, you're worth 1/5 of the control score now, right? And vice versa, which makes vehicles actually worth bringing, and why people bring vehicles in Warhammer 40K, where people kind of stray away from vehicles for the most part in Star Wars, because the vehicle is just one activation, and it costs a lot. You know,
mm-hmm. There was another point I was trying to make, but I forgot which one it was. Because your third one, what was your third one again? Your point?
so Game of Heroes, King of the Hill, clocks, and then hard to
Clocks.
balance.
Yeah, the clock was the biggest thing that I had an issue with the bigger lists, because it's like I'm moving as fast as I can, but now I'm spending more time standing, waiting for them to make decisions on what to do and then what unit to go with next. Yeah, that was definitely a part that I feel like if we did have chess clocks, I would have had probably 15 more minutes than my opponent to be able to do stuff, which then I could have done a lot with at the end. But maybe we can get into some chess clocks, because I feel like they're going to have to do something for the competitive scene, since the competitive scene, like we were mentioning, does buy more boxes in order to try to make the most competitive list. But yeah,
AMG, do you hear us?
help
Yeah,
out the
Competitive
competitive
scene
people
competitive.
spend
is
more money on your game on average, per player at least.
Right? I know that.
that's something that I've never understood is why like the whole like clocks or timers or anything is like prohibited in competitive play, although you have a set time limit. Like it that kind of mind boggles me.
Right. I
Chess
think that.
clocks is the only way to have a truly fair game, right?
Mhm.
There's definitely some trickiness on shared time. Like when my opponent is rolling their defenses rolls, do they roll that on my time or do they roll that on their time, right? They're the one that could potentially slow it down, right? And of course, people always talk about the potential for cheating, when it comes to clocks, right? Where like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to flip the clock back over. Oh, you burned 5 minutes off your time instead of my time. Oops, like, but I mean, like take cheating out of the equation, right? Because that's what judges are for and TOs are for. Um, I like clocks because it keeps the game fair. Some people say, well, it makes it so stressful. It's already stressful enough to go to a tournament. You're you're competing. Like if you want to win, stress is like something you just have to learn how to manage. I don't know what to tell those people. So I've never really liked that excuse. The only excuse against clocks that maybe I've ever heard was that, again, is like if there are shared time things, Um, and those become a little bit of a gray area on whose time that should be, right? Like if it's my turn and my opponent is taking longer than I'd like for them to pick up their models and get them out of the way before I make my next shot, like can I push the clock over to the, and that, but that just needs rules. That just needs TO to, like, print a document and make it clear when you can tap it over to your opponent, right? And in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear is like if they're making a decision and I'm waiting on them in any capacity, I can pop the clock back to them. Doesn't matter. I could ask them a question about a rule about one of their units. Hey, what does that guy do? Oh, hold on, let me check. Okay, cool. Tap. Take your time, bud. You can tell me whenever you get back to me, and like if I'm waiting on him to on a response, yeah, that's on your time. I think that's the easiest way to do it. But again, TOs can make a structured document and make it clear. But I think clocks are a good thing for the game, not a bad thing for the game. But because they're not required for the game, that's why I don't like big activation lists either. Again, my experience versus Ewoks was already a little bit like of a telling thing, and I haven't played against 21 activation rebels, but I don't think I ever want to be fair, or Empire, or whomever, right? I just don't think I want to wait for my opponent that much.
Honestly, it was quite enjoyable. I
Eh.
like the challenge.
It's not about the challenge.
I don't know.
For me. It's not because I'm up for a good challenge. Like if the list is good, I just don't like. Again, those four bullet points. They don't. None of those actually criticize the power of the list, right? In my 4 bullets, because like I don't care about fighting a list that's even objectively better. Like when Blizzard Force was insane, I still played against it, right? Like old Blizzard Force when it was still cracked. I played against it and I enjoyed the challenge, saying like, yeah, you're playing a really ridiculously overtuned list, and we know it, you know it, and you'll see a big grin on my face when I still beat you anyway. I love that challenge, but those 4 points can't be solved. Difficulty doesn't come into play on any of them, right? Those are
And I
all.
think
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's going to show that I'd be as bold to say the community as a whole hasn't necessarily dived into it because I don't know outside of Crucible that I've seen any GTs or even some of the local competitor play. I really haven't seen many activations that are pushing past 12. I mean, I know I've joked with one of the local TOs of like, I want to put this on the table as far as the 16 act card list, but I couldn't imagine ever actually bringing that to a tournament. That's more of a let me poke fun and see if I can actually like play this to any kind of success.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and again, I don't want to harp too much on those specific instances and those specific lists because again, it's not even like their power that's the problem. It's the fact that they're even a thing. It's a problem that I've wanted them to fix, AMG to fix, right? I want them to fix how they approach mechanically, like the rules of the game on like how they want us to interact with building our lists and heroes and upgrades and those kinds of things because these point changes we can only guess what they were trying to tell us when we look at these point changes, right? Like recon intel going to 8 points. You can only guess what they're trying to say. What they're trying to say is we see people taking this upgrade too much. That's what it says to me. I
Well,
can't really infer anything else,
they
right?
changed the rules, right? They want if they changed the rules to make sure, hey, Recon Intel is going to be super strong. Everybody takes it. Oh wait, hold on, guys. Don't take it as much as you're taking it. I don't know. Seems kind of funny.
Yeah, and medics, right? Again,
Yeah,
it's like, didn't they all go up? Like all the,
yeah. I was
or
gonna
No,
say the
not
the
all of
I mean
clone.
them,
they all
but
did go
some
up,
of them,
but
right?
they had all been relatively down, and they didn't. They only went up a tiny
Yeah,
bit,
clone
excluding the PK.
clone medic went up 3 points. The
Yeah, PK went
big
up 10. That's insane.
yeah the
I mean,
very
it deserved it.
No, yeah, no, and
Yeah.
again, maybe it did, that's fine, but I mean, like when I look at, I guess it still goes back to the same point from before of like these weird like small increases of just a few points here, a few points there, but then it's like times what, right? How many instances of that thing are in a list, right? So it's not they didn't they didn't just change, you know, like if something's being spammed, it hurts more when the points go up, right? So medics are quite good. So it's not that they went up 3 points. They probably went up 9 points, right? Because most lists are going to run 3 medics, or at least previously my list can't even afford them at all now because of the point changes, right? Like I get 0 medics. If I want to keep the same number of activations, I can drop a whole activation and then throw some medics back into my list, but like again, when everyone else is rocking 12 to 14 activations pretty easily, I feel limping in with 10.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was going to actually mention is I'm surprised that they wanted the clone medics, or just sorry, not clone medics, but just all the medics for the most part to go up because of how many models you're constantly taking off the table. So I guess they're just trying to make the game go by quicker, or just not allow you to bring back as many minis.
I mean,
Bec-
the cover system was designed to make it more lethal, so it's just following in line with that decision.
Okay, because I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah, I mean they definitely. I mean, if they thought that that was where they wanted to go with it, then they succeeded.
Yeah, and the devs had mentioned in their stream that they were trying to equate it out of like even still breaking out, what is the value of these really powerhouse units at times that makes or breaks the difference. For the PK, it was like, okay, well, realistically, if the PK is taking a wound off of a B2 and bringing that B2 back, but it's the high unit, okay, well, this isn't equating out the same, and it still doesn't fully do that. But that was, at least in their stream, kind of their train of thought or their logistics with it is like, okay, well, I have this unit. It's a four-man unit. It's 100 points now. Looking at, or not quite yet CCs, but say looking at Delta, and I bring back one clone commando. Well, then there's like a 25-point cost value of it. So they're trying to find like the mean cost of units, the average, and then divide it out. I don't. Didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess sure, if you're saying okay, Yoda is 170 points, plus you're gonna run burst barrier and probably some 5 point thing like guidance, right? So that's 170 plus 25, and then divide that by his 5 wounds. He's 39 points per wound. So if you heal Yoda, like that's worth healing 39 points out of a list. Sure. Okay. Maybe so if that's what they're saying that, the medics are super cheap, oh, they're actually really really cheap. And maybe you could even argue that Gar ones are also a body in and of themselves that shoot, and that's not true for all droids, or excuse me, medics. But at 20 points to heal Yoda, I mean, I got to be near him in a game that now wants us to spread out more than we ever did before, right? It's like I heal 1 wound. That's honestly, once Yoda's taken his third wound, I mean, I probably feel like he's just dead anyway. Like it's just he's just a couple little just plink shots away from death. I mean, like really he to me Yoda's either at 5, 4, or dead in every game that I play. The 3 is like, oh no, I gotta be super cagey or run away, or I just dive him and just try to get the biggest value I can out of him, and that's a tactical thing, obviously. But you know, I don't get the luxury of being like more wounds, like more the higher wound heroes. But anyway, I digress. Like Vader, but I just
well,
don't think, and medics isn't really even the part that I'm trying to really like harp on. It's just more like it's back to the like the recons going to 8, right? It's the certain units and certain upgrades that are being bumped up, and it's like, are you actually fixing the problem that people had, right? Like, Paul, your list, if they just made They didn't change anything else, okay? And they only changed recon intel because that's across all armies, just recon intels, and then they made Anakin go up 20 points. Let's even call it 25, okay? And they made him 180, okay? How much would your point? How many points would that be for you? How many recon intels were you running before?
I only had one recon intel on Rex. Everyone else had scout except for Anakin and the normal core.
Okay, maybe Rex goes up in price because of scouting parties' innate value. Okay, because maybe, yeah, that is a way to cheat around it. So your list would have went up 3, and then it would have went up 25, and then maybe Rex goes up, I don't know, 7 points or
Don't give
something
him
like
any
that.
ideas.
No. I'm just saying, like, maybe he did, right? Because maybe if that's the problem that they were trying to fix. All right. Okay, so if your list went up 40 points, what do you lose out of that? Like, that's a ton of
Strike
stuff
team.
that you like. Yeah, you lose a whole activation at 40 something points, or you basically go naked units on some other stuff, right?
Yeah,
Like,
but
that's
I feel like
insane.
you can't afford that right now, especially with the stuff that because you need bodies, and so and you need activations.
Right, so you're
So
gonna just thin out your army, and you're gonna
yeah,
take less cool stuff, which
right.
again harkens back to my first point, which is like it's a game of heroes and things. Things are supposed to feel cool when everything is a naked unit, and I don't have heavy guns, and I don't have leaders leading those units, and I don't have the cool upgrades that is my little secret spice and tech that I like to play, putting e-gear on this unit or that unit because I like to have unhindered, or or like all those little like little flavor things. When we're thinning out our units and everything is being run naked, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm the first person to admit, like, it just feels like the game becomes bland and boring.
Yeah.
um
Well, I want to just get a few other things in real quick. So I'll go ahead and just mention briefly that the Bart Gunners, the Ion went up and the RPS
Or
went down.
that one was actually a mistake. They all went down 3 points.
Oh, they all went down 3 points. Okay, so that's
Yeah, they
good.
all did.
I'm glad they all
Yeah.
went down. And we'll talk about Yoda and guidance in just a second. The engagement protocols went down, which is I'm pretty happy about that. But the attack and defense protocol went up 5 points. Wow. So
That's the EXD penalty for the snails.
okay, yeah, because I was gonna say I feel
Yeah.
like that's what they were trying to target with the attack and defense there, especially with Exemplar coming in.
Yep.
The attack and defense protocols. I feel like that's fine. EXD is still pretty efficient with the extra free actions that they get. The Viper Recon 6 to 9, which is surprising because I feel like most people don't use it, and they don't actually. The Viper Recon gives out observation tokens, correct?
Yeah, but it's also 2 white dice, and essentially it was a 6-point red save wound.
Okay, I feel
So
like
it had to go up somewhat, but it didn't go up so much that it couldn't be taken on a B1 and feel bad.
okay, yeah, because I was wondering why it would even go up because I feel like observation tokens they don't really do much as Republic, because I know you have Cody that can do a lot with observation tokens, and he can pair his cards with the beams, which now give observation tokens. So now that his 1 and 3 pit have gone skyrocketing in value because the fact that you're handing out more observation tokens outside of just Cody, and you can still use them for impact and suppression and stuff. The Imperial Medroid went up 3 points, which okay. The 21B Med went up 2 points, and Op Luke went down 10 points, which is insane, but cool. I mean, I don't know. Did y'all want to talk about Luke real fast before Yoda, or did you just want to go straight to the Yoda?
I think they said that Luke isn't getting a new card, like getting an updated card.
Okay,
So that was partially for the points decrease.
got you.
Which sucks. But
Yeah, it's still a great card though, minus
Yeah.
like the attack pool. It's kind of
it is, but if you're going to go
Yeah.
through and refresh most of all the game,
oh yeah.
why does he have why are his lightsaber dice black?
because he built it himself, man.
He's the most powerful like Jedi, arguably. Anakin slightly stronger when he's all raged out on dark side energy and stuff, but by and large, Luke is incredibly powerful. I mean, and if I'm thinking more of like the the books, but like Luke is insane, okay? And like this is like Return of the Jedi Luke, right? Like, come on, man. Like,
What are you thinking? Like three red, four black, or three red, three black, two red, four black,
uh,
five black.
two two red, five black.
So let's look at the
Like if you're gonna
what
have some spiky dice, just or whatever, some fluctuating those 50-50 dice, you need to give him at least two reds to lock it in. I would prefer probably three reds and three black, but I don't know. That's just where I'm at.
To be fair, they
Yes.
also didn't say if they were changing any of the command cards for either Luke. So
Now I hope they
Yeah,
They-
do
that's a whole other problem. Command
Yeah.
cards, like
because
I'm still weirded out by Maul. One Maul can take 6 and the other one can only take 3. Like, come on.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I do
Come
like
on,
the
man.
extra stuff that Anakin got. You know, like 6 extra white dice. You know, that's pretty.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I'm sure that maybe if they can eventually change up some of the Luke cards to give him something similar to that, that would make it feel better. And now that he's only 5 points less than Anakin, I feel like they have to kind of do that to kind of bring up Luke a little bit in his worth. Now,
Well, I hate that they did the rework on Commander Luke to where, his dice pool was one red, three black. So it's like, okay, now he's more expensive, he's more experienced, but his dice pool is, I mean, borderline swinger. I don't, yeah.
To be
I'm
fair,
with
I might have also
Kyler.
heard wrong. Just throwing that out there.
No, I think
Yeah.
I think I agree with you that that's what they said in the stream. I'd have to go back and recheck it. But I mean,
Yeah.
even like Kyler said, if we did three red and four black, or yeah, say three red, four black. I mean, that's putting him at, in my opinion, somewhere similar to where Vader's dice pool is, but Vader's dice pool is even better because I mean, red's gonna hit, and he's got Pierce 3 versus OP Operative Luke is just, I won't say OP because it's just not accurate. Um, yeah, not super crazy about not super crazy about it. But
well,
anyway,
maybe instead of his 2 pip, maybe eventually he can get like a guidance or pull the strings instead of the whole mind trick thing for a second. Maybe that can do something.
well, speaking of things that we're not crazy about, and guidance and pull the strings, which, and I mean, to be fair to all those listening that aren't as aware, so the change to guidance and pull the strings isn't actually to those specific keywords. Those keywords still do what they've always done. It's now the change to the keywords at like charge, steady, and relentless, to where that keyword is only viable during that unit's activation.
This is also a nerf to Anakin, by the way, because of Tempted. He can't trigger a charge off of the Tempted anymore.
Standbys got
Standbys.
so much worse.
I don't think you were able to trigger a charge off of the tempted anyway, because it's just either a move, like a specific move, and not like a
Well, tempted can let you attack, but not the
Yeah.
move. The move can't make
Right.
you attack.
right. So you can still attack, but it's not triggering like a charge or anything like that. So the tempted is fine. It's more so like Luke's 2 pip that kind of would allow him to do the mind trick. I guess you can't charge with your opponent's unit. Jin's 1 pip, like you were mentioning, you can't charge outside of her with that once per round. So I guess she's going to get reworked command cards, and then can't use
No.
this
Yeah,
whole.
those two
No,
pip.
no command cards are going to change. Mark my words.
I,
I mean, they
feel like
already have, so
yeah, we've
They
got
already
to
No,
said
get.
but
President to
not
change
because
them.
of this nerf. I don't think they're going to change them because they've like they're not going to make Yoda's 2 pip different or better because like now you can't guidance the relentless guy. Like the whole point of his card was that you could like give him relentless and go ham, or you could give someone else relentless and guidance them, right? And then you had the versatility. They're not like they're just gonna reduce points if anything, and maybe they won't even do that for Jin because it's
I
Jin.
mean, I'll throw it out here. Maybe they delete Bad Batch from the game and they give all the things back.
Yeah.
Ah,
Ooh.
I
Dude,
mean,
if that happened, you know how many people would just be like so over the game. Again, like if they
yeah.
ever removed a unit, like people would just be like, all right, that's the final straw. You're literally telling me I can't play with this model? Like it's already a reason why people stop playing GW games because they will quote unquote legends certain things that are old. Because like oh this model's 20 years old and hasn't been produced for the last 10 years, so they will legends the model because it was made in pewter back in the 90s or something, right? So like they drop games and people will literally stop playing the biggest war game of all time due to models getting discontinued. So a smaller game like Legion has no hope if they start making it so people can't play with the plastic that we've already bought. That would be the end of the game, I think. So I don't think we'll ever see a ban slash deletion of a unit. Um, kind of weird with the clones, right, where they gave us one unit card that combined the two, but it was very clear that you could run them as phase ones or phase twos, and it's the same unit. At least you're still playing your plastic on the table, right? But
right. Now, do you
I,
think
I,
that?
don't- I don't I don't see Bad Batch going anywhere because of that.
Yeah.
So,
I don't either.
oh no, no, no. Now I know that Yoda went down 10 points, but if pull the strings is also getting a hit, I'm surprised Palpatine is not on here for a points adjustment as well,
Well, because
unless
he can make you attack or move, so they already feel like maybe he didn't really get hurt because you know.
He's also the same points as Yoda now. Like Yoda went down to Palpatine's cost.
Yeah,
Mm.
So
and he still hasn't gotten his big rework either. So
yeah.
I,
Alleged.
I feel like a lot of yeah,
I
his
mean, if
his
they
big
don't
alleged.
rework his 3-pip,
or
like
his
that's just sad.
right. And I feel like he's the Emperor that he should have 6 cards total, because he's the whole brains behind the Empire in a way, and he's supposed to be like the most manipulative slash coming up from the Republic. It'd be cool if he had 6. I would say at least.
I'm not against that idea. I just his 3 command cards already kind of cover his main themes, so I don't know what else you could do for him. That's the only thing.
Yeah, well, I'm sure we can
Yeah.
probably save that one for like another
They don't
Palpatine
actually
one.
have to come out with a full 6, right? Like in some senses, because like
No.
we don't have 6 rounds, so
That's
Maybe
true.
they could do 4 or 5, so like maybe an extra
yeah.
1 or 2.
Even just like adding 2 more at least gives you one to play every round.
Give him another 1 pip that gives him like a
'Cause
3 speed or something. Because I mean,
Make him
hey, if
Dark
you're
he
looking
Yoda.
at
doesn't
the,
he doesn't need to he doesn't know he doesn't need to be faster when he's
oh, maybe not
gold man.
faster, but maybe give him like some sort of like special jumping or crazy crap that he was able to do in episode 3 or something.
If they ever add him
little-
to CIS, yeah, no, if they ever add him to CIS, like how they have 2 malls representing different eras, sure, yeah, I can see that.
I would like a Clone Wars era out, like have one of his command cards be like I am the Senate and just go crazy. That would be the same as Size Matters Not. Give him speed 3, give him charge, give him a free jump 1, and just let him do his twirl of death.
Maybe they're talking to the SWU guys and looking at that new Palpatine leader that just came out in the new set. Essentially,
Maybe so.
it's Palpatine, and the side that he comes down on is Chancellor Palpatine, but you flip him over. He doesn't have a unit side, but he has Darth Sidious as the other side. So it's like his whole ability changes, and you go back and forth because he's playing both sides.
That's cool.
Have incognito. Yes.
Yeah. You can do all sorts of stuff.
By the way, Paul, I've been playing with your list. I don't see a way to make this work without dropping an activation, man.
Or 2.
It just. I mean, if you drop a strike and you go thin on one arc trooper, like you just literally run it as like a naked arc, which isn't super compelling because you won't have the clone commander in there. But like, you could run into that right there is almost enough points. Dropping the upgrade on Rex that the orders probably don't need that, and then yeah, I don't know. I was playing with it, but like it does feel like a shell of like what it was. Like when I looked at your like when I look at that list, you know, before changing anything, and it's at 1099, it's so sad because I'm like, it's like per. I wouldn't say it's like perfect in the sense of like competitively perfect, but like it's perfect as in like it's so all the fat was already trimmed out really. The only thing that's in this list that could like honestly just like come or go is improv orders, right? Like that's just a nice to have. Everything else serves a purpose and is like I mean you're already not running anything on the clone commandos. You're already not running anything on the strikes. You're only running a commander upgrade, no heavy, and just grenades on the arc troopers, right? Like you've trimmed the fat down to the most efficient way to get the points, you know, like sliced and diced around. And then it's just like and it's just sad. And then you look in the bottom right and you're like, oh no, no, you gotta cut out a tenth of your army.
I
Now,
was really excited when they came out with the 1,000 point list because I had finally could consistently get to 10 activations with Gar and have like fun units. You know,
You
not knocking.
fool! You thought you could
Yeah,
have fun?
yeah, not knocking clone infantry. Because I feel like that was good, but yeah, it's to I I hate it.
Graham, did your list go up a lot?
So
It went. Or wait, sorry, we're saying Grant or Graham?
Graham, sorry, Graham. Did
Uh,
your
it's
lists that
all
you like
good.
to play?
It went up completely. It went up 29 points because of the Yoda 10-point decrease. So actual increases was 39. So essentially, it was what is it? Either drop Delta with the upgrades down to a naked clone commando, or I can just get rid of the clone commandos and do triple arcs like we talked about with
Hmm.
the captain into the fray and hacked comms. It's one more
Okay.
point than a clone commander arc squad. It does everything that thing does and more, minus the
Yeah.
inspire.
Which, and nowadays, I feel like is definitely important because of the amount of suppression being dished out. But, um, yeah,
yeah, I think
But if you're
all the
playing Yoda,
lists that I had, yeah, all the lists that I had saved, I think averaged at least somewhere between up by 70 to 90 points. Like I had my Anakin Bad Batch list and then I had my Yoda Bad Batch list. And both of those, it was like, okay, find something, delete it, and shave some stuff down, and now you can play it again.
Yeah, yeah, and and it just sucks because like in the game where activations is the whole point of like how you win, like making our stuff cost that much more is just like so insulting. It's like either you can't play with your fun units or you can't play the units with the fun upgrades. So you're taking fun out of them somewhere. That's where I'm just like, dude. Again, if they were gonna increase the list at all, like the list the way there was for your list, Paul, like maybe I could see a world where you're like trying to find 40 points, because then you could just chop the mortar and the medic, right? Like all right, there you go. It's still the same list. Like you don't get a heal, and that guy probably becomes a thumb, and he goes and sits somewhere, and he, you know, like that unit is no longer. And yeah, you need to be a little more careful about Anakin getting plinked early on because you can't heal him before he runs in. Like you play a little different. It didn't change your list all that much, but yeah,
no,
I don't know.
one thing too, because feel like I'm the devil's advocate tonight.
no,
I think you
no.
are. I think you are a little bit,
um,
at least against me.
the um, up until really the Dark Troopers, we only said what takes them so long, and this is 3 to 4 months. So there is a little bit to say that, like, hey, they're actually listening and improving as far as that goes, responding quickly instead of just giving us a wall of silence. But also, as far as like lists like this, like, I would prefer it if they like also did it across the board, just all spam lists and not just Gar spam lists. As much as like I don't have an issue with the 21 act lists, um, just because while it sucks for everyone that like bought into it, it's ironically better for people coming in as far as expenses go. So it makes it a
Oh, yeah,
little
that's a good point. Yeah, Age of
yeah.
Sigmar took that approach. Yeah, in Age of Sigmar, you can buy a combat patrol, or sorry, what battle force. I used the wrong verb. It's like effectively like a battle force. It's called Skaven Tide, and it's literally half an army. Half. You bought the box. You and your buddy, probably you splitting it with somebody because it's two half armies, right? And literally, if you and your buddy bought two, so that each of you get a core rule book, and then you trade the army that you don't want with each other, you now have a full 2,000 point army that you can play like which would be the equivalent of a 1,000 point. Or like that's incredible. Imagine if you could do that with Legion, where you could just like buy two products and you're able to field an entire thing. For new players getting into the game, yeah, high point cost is actually really really good.
I mean,
I'll
just get
just say
two of
that.
the Echo Base box.
Well, yeah, I mean
I
that
mean,
is the weird. Yeah, that is the weird one that you can actually do it with.
honestly, even the 501st box, you can get
Yeah.
that, have your 3 arc, 3 quad, an ATRT,
Mhm.
Anakin. I mean, that gets you basically one of the most competitively proven lists, minus, there are some upgrades that you need to go out and get. But for
Yeah,
the most part, I mean, that gets you in the door in a very good spot if they would just restock it.
right, but they did that like across the board, right? Like they did it to every army, and they have 25 armies in Age of Sigmar. So, yeah,
I think
that's
two
something that I
separatist
think
invasion
that AMG
boxes.
could do for us.
Oh
That's
gosh,
something
please
that
no.
but that's something that they could do for us. We don't need more battle forces. I actually think that battle forces need to get banned out of competitive, but that's a hot take, so we can talk about that in a whole different video. But
Hmm.
battle forces but yeah, battle forces need to be looked at. But but for getting new players into the game, because I can't tell you the number of times people come in and talk to us and be like, "Oh, y'all play that game? Oh, I've been thinking about it. How do I get into it?" And I go, "Okay, well, there's yeah, 501st if you can find it is a way to get into the game if you like clones, and then Echo Base is a way to get it. But then they're like, no, 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 but I want to play this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, well, then you're out of luck. You're gonna have to like death by a thousand cuts, right? You're gonna have to find someone to split this core box with, and then you're gonna have to buy this. And I can tell them the most efficient things, and then by the time we hit about $500, the person's looking at me like, yeah, I think I'm good. And then they don't. I never see them again. Like when they find out that it's 500, and you could say, well, oh, GW games are even more expensive. They are, but there's also different ways that game can be played. You can actually play their combat patrol, which is just those starter boxes versus each other while you build your army, and it gets you into the hobby, and it gets you out there and playing people. So I think that Legion needs that, and the strike team size games or whatever mode or whatever where we just build our list with like less points in it is not actually the answer. Like the imagine if you could buy a product that was actually balanced and already like comes with the models and it's already balanced to be played against its counterparts. Like that's a great thing for new players.
I will say though, skirmish is ironically more balanced now
Oh,
compared
it
to the
is.
main
It
game.
is. Oh, no, no, no.
Just
I
because
know. I
everything is
actually
already close.
yeah, no, I agree 100% actually. I actually think that skirmish is like also the 3x3 board size actually works better with a lot of the models that we have, and with the new like deploying off the edge and all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't feel so bad. But but again, that could probably be a video in itself. Is skirmish gonna take over the world?
Because it ain't Spec Ops.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was a thing.
That's a sad thing.
Yeah.
And they just came out with Mandos too.
I know.
But
I like that one.
yeah. And here, I can also send you. Essentially, it is my Yoda Chewie list, but all you do is take them out and you make it. You do that, but you do Rex and Anakin, and it works the exact same way. It's literally one more point between those two characters from Anakin or from Chewie and Yoda.
That's crazy.
So yeah, I think Rex is one more point than Chewie with 2 upgrades.
Okay. No,
So
I mean, I'm I'm excited to kind of see, in a way, excited to see what to come up with next for Gar, because I guess you're gonna have to, again, just like you would in 800, make them a small but as efficient as possible list.
Well, here's the
And
joke. You're playing at 900 points. They just nerfed you 99, right?
yeah,
so, so
so
what was once what was all they're gonna do is they're just gonna hit us with another round of nerfs, nerf us another 99, and then Paul, we're back to playing 800, and everyone else gets to play 1,000.
yeah, and I think hopefully what happens is maybe the 501st is not phased out in the fact that it's gone, but I think maybe more people are going to start playing the generic Republic at this point, because I know even Pally had a very fun looking list again with the Rex, not Rex, yeah, Rex and Cody, and the ISP and the tank. It looked super interesting with the amount of observation tokens and what you could do with that. And now that I was going to get into it, and next year we've got the ARF troopers coming out. We've got Padawan Ahsoka and Ahsoka Tano Commander coming out, and then we have the Clone Trooper Marksman finally coming out. At least there's something for Republic in each quarter, so that's going to look like hopefully something is going to change.
we're also missing 3 to 4 more things in quarter 4, because all the other ones are 4 to 5 in each quarter.
Yeah, the
So like if
last
you look
quarter.
at quarter 4 of 2025, there's only Grievous on the wheel bike, and every other thing has 5 or 4 options.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows what
Well,
else is going there?
yeah, because I think someone had mentioned that. I guess it was on Gray Squadron Gaming's thing with Will Schick about the fact that they were going to try to announce stuff in April that they didn't announce, and so maybe there's a few other things that they could possibly come out with, like hopefully a 212th, or hopefully like a wolf pack, or hopefully maybe something else that we can get. I know that battle forces aren't the going to be your thing there, Kyler, but maybe I don't know. I'm
All right, Kyler, you want me to be salty? Here you go.
Yes.
ARF
Join me.
troopers should be core. We should not have marksmen. There should be phase 1s, phase 2s, and ARF troopers.
Yes. Preach.
Because the ARF troopers were not like ARC troopers. They were just a specialization within the legions, because you go back to the second battle of Geonosis, and it's just the 212th and ARF helmets.
okay.
Yeah, I agree. Um I want to see them really evaluate how we build armies, and if they're really going to make this game like truly work in the long term, like really really long term, with like all the cards that we're changing and stuff, they probably do need to like rethink the way that people approach the list. Maybe just start by getting rid of the detachment doesn't count against the number of things. Like I think that change was just silly and unnecessary to a certain extent. But also, I don't like the fact that you can only bring 3 total special forces, right? Like there's certain things about that just feel so bad in certain lists, right? Like it makes Wookiees unplayable because well, unless you're in the Wookiee force, but like it makes them unplayable because one, they're too expensive, and two, you're gonna just take your 3 arcs and then you're gonna be like, all right, well, I don't have any room for you, right? It's like, so I don't
Well,
know.
yeah, because they killed all the Wookiees.
Yeah,
They're still cheaper. And a Wookiee unit with a shield and recon is now 103 points.
it's insane. It's like, please explain to me why that should be 10% of my army.
Uh,
But anyway, I just want them to reevaluate like how we approach list building, and that's why when I said that to get rid of battle forces, that what I really mean is battle forces is the only time where you get to play around and like break the ability to like build your lists in funky ways, right?
Mhm.
What I would love to see is us not need battle forces in order for us to make fun lists. Right now, I feel like battle forces, the reason why people like them is either one of two reasons. One, it's because it's broken, right? It's overperforming. We saw that like at Worlds with the CIS one, right? Wasn't that the experimental
oh,
Experimental
droids thing?
droids.
yeah.
It well overperformed, right? Why? Well, because the Battle Force allowed it to have these special rules, right? It wasn't just list building. These Battle Forces come with extra rules, right? And those rules were what were busted or whatever, right? And again, I don't want to. That's a again, we could make probably a whole video just on that, but getting rid of the battle forces puts everything back to the same playing field of like, okay, nobody gets these special rules anymore. Um, per se, like they don't get like these special rules, or if they are going to get special rules, maybe they come through um some other creative thing, like what we were talking about, guys, where we were talking about the faction secondary or faction advantage cards and stuff. Like those are going to be cool ways to like approach the game, I think. And so what I would really hope to see is they say, okay, battle forces are, maybe they have to codify Shadow Collective as a real faction before they do that, though, obviously. But we should be able to bring 6 Wookiees as core. It just should just be that way, right?
So
And if they need a keyword on the Wookiee card that says like, for purposes of list building, treat this as a core, and make up a keyword and slap that on their card, like go for it. But like, yeah, they can actually do it on the unit cards, because I mean, hey, all unit cards are a PDF now, anyways, right? So like, this is the time to like really like take advantage.
what if they made the Shadow Collective still a battle force, but had a mercenary faction, and then you could just pile in as many of the mercenaries together as you wanted as like an underworld faction, or instead of calling it a
Well,
mercenary
yeah,
faction.
Underworld should be the faction. I agree 100%. But like that's what I mean when I say they should codify it, but then get rid of the battle force, right? Like the battle force is unnecessary at that point if you've codified it as a real faction. Um so yeah, I agree with you. And I agree with that approach. Make an Underworld faction, fill it with a bunch of mercenaries and stuff. And yeah, and then they can follow they again um they can follow like for list building purposes and stuff. I know that it allows like extra thises and that's and stuff. But they can just build those right into the cards when they're printing these new PDFs with new cards, right? Like this is the time. Like and you can't even say it's too late, because it would be too late if they had to print them on paper and make product and ship it to stores and all that stuff. But we got unit cards in a PDF right now, right? Like let's take advantage of that.
I'm curious if they're actually at the printers yet or not.
I hope that they don't ever print the cards
I
physically
mean,
ever again.
we have it on that thing. It's coming in
Oh,
Q3.
damn.
Updated faction
That's
card packs.
that's actually a disappointment for me. I wish that they just did not. I actually really like the idea that they do it as a PDF kind of thing for two reasons. Number one, if it it's good for new players, right? You don't have to physically go out and buy a box to get a small upgrade unit card thing to go to a tournament and put the right little upgrade thing with the thing if the tournament wants you to. Because if they had everything go PDF print to play, then more people can show up to places and play in
I don't
I
tournaments.
mean,
mean,
I don't
all
I
they
don't
have to
think they
do
have
is
to
just.
stop. Yeah, I don't think they have to stop doing the print stuff.
Well, then
It's
they just can't change the cards. It doesn't give them the ability, like when you physically have a card, anytime you want to change a card as opposed to changing points, it becomes near impossible,
I mean, they
right?
already
Like,
do that with points though, and with errata, they've
right,
been
I
doing
know,
that.
and that's the problem, right? So errata feels bad because you have to. I have this physical card that I'm supposed to walk into a tournament with, and that they tell me I have to have, but the text on it is actually physically wrong,
I
right?
mean,
Like those are conflicting concepts.
all AMG has to do is go into their competitive document and say you're not required to bring cards.
Well, I think that they definitely need to do that. Like that's a great change. But I would also love them to say, "Hey, we're gonna make these physical." Games Workshop does this, by the way. Games Workshop prints physical cards, they sell them, and then before they even hit the shelves, they will have errata. Like they're already wrong, day one.
Wasn't that the Votan or whatever? League's
there's
Votan was
so
notorious.
there's so many instances of this. There's so many instances where it's just oh, that card, oh yeah, it doesn't do that anymore. Like I have a data sheet for a card, and it has an entire extra weapon missing. It's like, but anyway, but my I guess my overarching point is, like, I just wish that they didn't do any print run. I might be in the minority in that. Some people really like the physical cards and stuff, but I just feel like they can let Etsy people like fill that niche to do card stock printing and like make nice cards and stuff. Like they don't need to make money off of selling us card packs. Um, like I just don't think that that's really where they're gonna get a huge return on their investment anyway. Um, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they make a ton of money from those little like cardboard booster box things that they sold us in the past.
I mean, they're what is it? It's maybe like they can because of how much they're printing. It's like probably 10 cents a card.
Hmm.
The question is, what route are they going? Are for these card packs? Are they going the classic Legion route where it was Legion or region locked, or are they doing the Shatterpoint route and like they want to do for all their games
Oh,
and every language that they do is going to be in
dude,
one box?
it's so wild. I don't know, Paul. Do you know about this? When you buy
uh,
any product for Shatterpoint, it will have every language in the box.
I
Instead, so
thought
that way they can send the same product worldwide. So you will get 5 of every card in your box for the 5 languages that the game's printed in, or whatever. It's wild. They
well,
just print everything in. They
if you
print
live in the
It's
everything
meant
five
north,
to.
times.
if you live in the north, you've got a lot of Firestarter now.
I mean, it's meant to be cost saving, is what they say, which makes sense, honestly. But
Yeah,
um,
yeah. They say that the by even though they're printing more cards, and that 80% of them are literally being thrown in the garbage, right? Because I don't read French, I don't read
yeah.
all these other languages.
It's good practice, if you're interested in learning.
Terrible practice, let me tell you. But yeah, they say that it's cheap. And I believe them, because I mean, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? They would have done the math and they figured out. So the distribution and not having to route certain product to certain places and do all that, they can literally just say, oh, that region needs 10,000 boxes. They just take 10,000 boxes and send them. They don't have to specifically allocate 10,000 French boxes going to France or whatever.
Yeah,
Which
parlez-vous
is,
français? Je sais un petit peu.
yeah, isn't that the only? I've heard that enough times to know that that's the thing that people say when they want to fake like they know French.
So
it,
the so actually, I wound up taking about. I was a French major for a little while in college, so I
Okay.
I know a little bit at least. So I can talk tiny bit, but that was so long ago that it's almost pointless for me at this point.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
make me go back.
Don't go to Canada.
Don't,
You don't
don't put
need
me
it.
back in school, please.
Yeah. No.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm sure. Yeah. Well, no, we won't get there.
Yeah, no, Canada's half the classes. There's two different types of schooling, and one of them is French immersion, so half your classes are in French, half are in English. And while I was in school, they decided, we're gonna change which classes are in which language. So everything you learn, you have to relearn in a whole new language and learn more.
Oh God.
Sick.
And then when you're out and about, you've got a lot of product that's still labeled in French that you got to read.
Yeah. I mean, we already have trouble reading some of their English, so let's not practice on their other languages.
Yeah,
That's true.
AMG is not known for their perfect
Clear
English
rules.
grammar. Yeah, the rules and the wording on some of the command cards. Yeah, oh my gosh. Um, but yeah, so for me, again, I guess if I had to boil it down to like a couple points of like what I need to see from the game for me to like have my faith restored in the game and in the company, which is a weird place because last year this time I was not in this position. I was incredibly optimistic and really amped. Last year going to Crucible was so fun and I was just very much enjoying the game in the space, but since then, things have changed, and for me, the negatives are I think that they need to evaluate how people built this, like in general, right? And spam lists and big X lists is in that bucket, right? But I want them to do that. I want them to evaluate, how new releases are and like the effects of those new releases, right? Like if commandos weren't maybe as strong as they released, like would they have had to hit Gar as hard as they did? Question mark, right? Who knows? Potentially, or like when they print when they print some of these new cards like Anakin and stuff, um, make sure that if you're gonna release a new card, that's effectively like releasing a new box, right? Obviously, he was broken, undercosted, right? So it's like, so I want them to reevaluate how they go about, giving us new stuff, and we're about to get a lot of new cards, right? So this is a problem that we're gonna feel very heavily very soon.
I guess the one nice thing with the whole like errata comment that you're making about though is
Yeah.
since they've removed the text from the cards, it's just the keywords themselves. Unless
Yeah.
they remove a keyword, there's less of that issue in person.
I love that decision by them. Yeah, and and if people haven't heard, my previous videos, I'm not always like salty. Like I'm just salty this week. Okay, like let's
You
keep
just
it
got
serious.
pulled into the mines.
I'm yeah, yeah. And but yeah, yeah, I'm in the salt mines. Um, and then yeah, and then the last thing that I really want to see in the futures. And I agree that it hasn't been maybe that many months since we got a points update, but because it's twice a year, we have to suspect that the next points update is going to be in 6 months.
The next
And
one's April.
April, yeah.
is that 6 months? I don't know.
Think
I don't know how to calendar.
They've said that the two that they're doing is one's in April right after Adepticon Worlds, and then the other one is going to be in November.
Okay, April's in 5 months. Okay, so, but then it'll be 6 months every 6 months. Is that right? After the
Yeah,
April
roughly.
one.
roughly,
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so this one's sort of like a patch.
This one's setting the pace.
Okay, good. Thumbs up. I'll definitely give them a thumbs up. But I'm gonna give them a thumbs down on what they actually changed, right? So thumbs up that they're doing it, thumbs down for how they did it, right? And so that's what I want to see them change. I want to see them make surgical changes to lists.
Yeah, I think.
This
So,
is
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
and but those are my big takeaways, right? And hopefully everyone can agree that none of those are me saying your army's too strong or your army's overpowered. None of those things. It's literally me just saying like to make the game healthy and keep it competitive and keep everyone happy. If they change some of those things, I think that we're gonna have more people joining the game and not so much people leaving the game, which is what's happening locally, which is really sad to see. I know some people that are already quitting over this most recent change because they wanted to see some different things. And by the way, the person that quit he's not a Gar player either, so it's not even that.
what I was gonna proposition was, how would you guys feel about an errata to Katarn armor instead of a points increase, and they go back to their original cost? Because at least for me, Katarn armor has always felt too passive. I feel like it should be changed to be more active. So essentially, the change that I would offer is that it would read before defense dice are rolled, you may opt to expend Tarn armor to take 1 wound. Otherwise, you can't spend it after rolling dice.
I would
So
rather
Oh yeah,
you,
I see
I
what
would
you're saying.
rather the clone commandos go back down to 75 and the Katarn armor be like 10 points. Reading the way it is.
yes,
I
then they
I
better
actually think
decrease
that
delta.
I actually just think that the problem is that they're is that 75 to 90 is the problem. Like, let's be
Like
real, man.
85 instead. Like only 10 points.
10 is even pushing it, right?
Because they
Like
Yeah.
went for
I honestly, I mean, they were undercosted when they came out at 75. I was like, ooh, wow, that's spicy, right? Because the upgrades were free, right? And that's so I like the idea that the upgrades are required and you slap them on. That's why they're 0 and all that. But I actually don't feel like 75 was too undercosted. And this is where I was saying, like, when Anakin was a problem, when clones were a little bit cheap, it's like the combination of some of those things maybe made it feel a little too strong. But if you just raise them by even 5 points, well, now I got to cut 10 out of my list. Where do I find 10 points in a GAR list, right? Like, that's genuinely hard to do. Like, most of the time, if our lists don't end in that sweet spot of having 30 points left over, we basically don't have points left over.
yeah.
Like,
Hopefully that gets better with more releases because I mean, especially since we effectively lost a unit and we're waiting for a new unit to bring us back to equilibrium.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's we don't even know what that looks like, except that it's probably going to be range 4 based, so it's probably not going to be cheaper.
No,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
um,
But yeah, I just want to see smaller changes, right? Like if Anakin was 175, he went up 20 points and then the clone commandos went up 5 points. If you're running only 2 clone commandos, your list just went up 30 points. That's a ton. That's that is an absolute ton of points. Um most lists, most other armies, even with a lot of cheaper units, are going to look at that and go like, "Oh man, wow, I really got to thin out a lot of stuff now to find 30 points." It happens to be that for us, it's like, and maybe I also sort of kind of think that the clone commander, that's another niche interesting. 22 to 30 is just wild. Like, that's 8 points, man. On the only thing that, and we were, and they knew we were taking it in triplicate to put them on ARC troopers.
Right.
But what we're giving rid of, we're doing that because our heavy was so overcosted. We
Mhm.
didn't do it because we'd rather play that over our heavy. We played it because
Yeah.
that was like half the price of our heavy almost.
Right.
yeah, and it arcs never needed that upgrade slot to begin with. That whole upgrade slot is problematic in itself just because not only are you balancing it just from core units, you're now balancing it against core and special forces units.
Mhm.
Agree 100%. That extra, yeah, that's a really good take. Is that if they didn't want us to run them that way, then they probably should have just said, "Hey, these guys need to be regular clones when you take the clone commander, right? Like, it's not the arc commander. Like,
Or they needed like
uh,
sidearm printed on them or something. Um,
something. I don't, and I don't know. But again, the other problem is, our heavy 37 points, man, for a sniper
it's
rifle.
the
For
cheapest of all of them. It's just our
I
special forces are more expensive.
which is dumb too, which is dumb too. But the yeah, 37 points on a 63, on a what, 64 base now? Yeah, it's like,
That's what I wanted to look at
was
101. You're telling me 101 points for an arc with a gun with a heavy is the right number? Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, thanks to Crit to Block for purchasing, or at least getting Legion HQ from 5th Trooper, we still have the history of points. Those ARC Troopers originally, before any changes, were at 78 points. Then they went down to 72. Or no, sorry, they went from they started at 72, went to 78, back to 72, down to 66, and then with 2.6, they went down to 58. So they're still less than the last time in Legacy Legion.
Yeah, but that's because they changed the
They-
unit card, right? That's why they went
Yeah,
down.
they went down, but they also, like, honestly, they're between charge and how the game is designed right now. They're, as much as I miss range 3, they're arguably better.
Yeah. And
So
again, the efficacy of the card it definitely is in this different space, but losing
yeah,
your range 3 gun and the way that feels and your threat bands and all that, and charge is really good, but
yeah.
maybe
Upgraded
charge is less
dice.
good now that you can't guidance it, but
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was never guidancing them anyways. I was playing with a handicap apparently.
yeah. I think I would use guidance. um in old Legion, I was using it about 7 times a game. Out of the 6 rounds, I'd use about seven
Yeah.
times. And then now in the new version, I still found myself using about 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I use it basically every turn.
I just never used it on things that had relentless or charge outside of the 2/5 turn. So
Yeah. Right,
again,
exactly.
Bad Batch breaks it.
Yeah. No, yeah, well, I actually only ran it with Bad Batch one time, and I realized that it was maybe unnecessarily, like, too good. So I just sort of, like,
Yeah.
self control. I was just like, I'm not gonna be the guy who plays this.
It's it's also weird because you were mentioning this earlier that like clone commandos came out and people just bought them because they've been waiting for them. Then the points increase on them. But Bad Batch did not get touched, and it is maybe it's the rebel sympathy. I don't know.
Oh, true.
I think
Yeah.
it's got to be because of the rebels.
Even though,
Yeah.
yeah, even though they have like actually different unit cards, it's not like R2, which is weird. I don't know. It's because you can actually like change the cost of one card without affecting the other because they don't have the same requirements, I guess.
Hmm.
Whereas R2 is the exact same except for one has a different symbol. But yeah.
Now, I'll end with me at least saying a positive and a negative real quick, just to because I'm gonna have to cut short in a second. But I think the good thing is, again, is for new players, it's gonna at least make things a little bit easier for list building because obviously you can't have as much, and it's going to make things simpler with guidance, and people aren't gonna have to think as much. But that's another sad part is that Yoda had such a high ceiling of talent that it was never boring when you played him. Every game was a little bit different. There were so many different options that you had, even though it's not as awesome as guidance, pulling the string still had a bunch of good stuff. But the amount of shenanigans and really cool stuff, because even Coco Zula, or the guy who has his own Bat Rep channel, we were talking and I kind of cut it out because it was getting to the point where I was almost so negative on the fact that everything's getting so stale, with the fact that they're dumbing down this game where you can't have as many shenanigans anymore. You're not having the best combos, which is what you were trying to build for in the first place. They're just making it a run towards the enemy and engage or just shoot them. There's not really like strategy involved anymore, which is really, really sad. And they're making it just harder and harder to get really good things, even though you had pulling the strings, you had on an Empire, you had Luke with his mind trick being able to do stuff with him and Rebels. You had Yoda being able to guidance and do a bunch of stuff there. You had a whole bunch of fun things that you could do outside of activations, which made it more fun and not needing as many activations. And now it's just so much blander. It's and the other huge thing that I am not a huge fan of right now is the fact that they've waited so long to put out the upgrades for all of the new units that a lot of people who are either not playing as many of those units that did get upgraded are waiting, but they're probably out of the game because they're not updated yet. And if they do update them and they're not really good, then it's going to be terrible. You're going to lose a ton of people and just even more people who have been waiting to get a crappy card that winds up coming out or something like that. And then now the points updates for people who did play Gar, you're probably going to have a lot of them coming out. A lot of Rebels are coming out because they don't feel like they're really good. But yeah, the fact that they did not update all the cards at once got a lot of people out. And then if they do update them and they're terrible, it's just you've lost a lot of people. And I'm upset that they didn't release everything at once. And that's as negative as I'm going to get tonight for it.
Well said on all those points. I mean, I really agree with all of it, and it's not too negative because it comes, if it came from a place of like because you just hate the company or hate the game or whatever, it's different. But like it's actually coming from a place, or at least for me, and I very much believe it for you, it comes from a place of like enjoying the game and having had a lot of great experiences. And when our experiences are on the decline, at least for me, over the last 3 months, my experiences and play experiences have been on the decline. We haven't been having as much fun, and locally, people are wanting to play the old rules so much that was one of my 3 games in the last 3 months. Is it like, guys like, yeah, I just don't like the new rules. Can we just play the old ones? Oh yeah, I still have the cards. Here you go. Boop, boop, boop. And we played them. Had a great game. You know, so it comes from a place of liking what the game was and really just wanting it to just be better. So, um, yeah. So no, I don't think you were too negative at all.
Okay, because yeah, I'm just starting to get really agitated that the cards are not fully updated. The cards that are updated are getting too expensive to play at this point, and to create a really fun list, the guidance to pull the strings things is now making a high tier unit a very dumbed down unit, and the fun things that you were able to do, or you're just unable to do. And I'm surprised they just don't make these kind of cool combos in every faction and just dumb down the factions that do have it into something that's just not as good. They're stifling everything is what it feels like, and it's becoming blander to me, especially with the standbys, the guidance. It what used to be fun is now becoming just like, oh, okay, I'll just do this instead, or instead of I've got so many options on the table that each game is so different. Rather, now it's just becoming, all right, well, all the objectives are the same. There's not really cool combos anymore except for maybe something here and there. And now there's no point in doing Yoda because all of the possibilities you had are gone.
There's totally points to playing Yoda. Take those words back.
Sorry.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm still gonna every game that I actually play is always gonna have Yoda on the board.
Yeah.
So like that's not gonna change. But I agree with you that I used to be able to catch my opponents by surprise in very interesting ways when it came to attacks, like getting an angle on something that I thought was safe, things like that. And now, without being able to guidance relentless and steady units and charge units, that's just one tool that I have to leave at home. I can't bring it in my toolbox anymore, and it's a little disappointing.
Any other statements just to kind of close it out?
No, I'm good.
I will be curious if they eventually change standbys again to where it works around the changes to these keyword changes. Like, sure, guidance can still get around it then, but it's a guidance way around it where you can get shot off for most units. I mean, standbys already got nerfed by making them have to go after the thing that triggers the standby. So It doesn't really help charge necessarily, even though charge kind of or all of them got around that by not. It was the move and not the actual attack,
Yeah.
whatnot. But yeah, it's this is also, and I will say this: this feels less bad than when FFG, at least, and this is one thing I'll hold against FFG, is when they pulled all the levers after Rexstar.
Mhm.
So there's lots of levers that got pulled here, and I feel like some of them weren't accounted for, like Jin, unless she is getting a new command like 1 pip. Um, but I'm at least hopeful that they have acknowledged that there is actually a need to be making changes at a consistent rate so that we have something to look forward to, so we're not just essentially going into something potentially like this where we're just going into a death spiral and it's just depressing because we don't have any hope in at the end of the tunnel when we have a track record, but at least there is still the chance, so I will hold on to that. um and yeah, I mean, I will still begrudgingly look forward to more plastic crack.
Always. Because
Always.
I mean, it's always nice anyway to wind up getting
Yeah.
more models. Like I'm excited for ARF
It-
Troopers, but and Marksmen at some point. So it'll be cool to kind of to
Yep.
expand.
But I will be proxying them for the first 6 months.
yeah, I'll probably only get like 1 or 2 of each. I won't get the full like
I'm
max out.
not gonna buy a single one until 6 months, and then I see when the point or whenever the next point thing, and then when I look at that'll dictate how I spend my money from now on. That's just me
Yeah.
though. That's not advice for anybody. That's just like that's how I'm gonna do it. Because I saw it just now with Clone Commandos, and I'm so happy that I held out. My buddy bought some, and I was like, oh, I could just borrow them if I need them, right? So
I think
anyway,
All right. Well, yeah, we'll definitely have to get another video in soon then to kind of discuss maybe some other options and possibilities that AMG should definitely take into consideration because I think we've got a lot of good ideas. But yeah, guys, thanks for joining in and putting in your 2 cents and giving us what I think everyone needs to hear anyway. So thanks for joining up, guys.
yeah, absolutely.
All right. And for everyone else, y'all have a wonderful time. Peace.
Later.